What's Gucci with the veterans military? Today we're going to be talking about the Gulf War illness, the 5 W's, as well as some of the disabilities in which Gulf War era veterans can claim presumptive conditions prior to that presumptive 10-year period being closed. As always, if you like this type of content, please like, share, subscribe. Give me your personal thoughts and opinions on Gulf War illness when it pertains to you and whatever disabilities that you're currently working on to get service connected. Let's jump into it, buckos. First, let's begin with which areas qualify for Gulf War syndrome. Pretty much we got here Egypt, Syria, Israel, Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, and the list goes on. If it's highlighted and has a name next to it, it's pretty much these are the areas in which veterans who deployed either in the air, land, or sea, they'll be able to qualify for the Gulf War syndrome, Gulf War illness, as well as the list of disabilities in which I will be talking about next. So let's jump into it. Your deployment history will qualify you for this area. Then the VA identifies, if you have any chronic unexplained symptoms lasting for more than 6 months related to Gulf War service, these are considered presumptive conditions, presumptive illnesses that occurred during or after your active duty period past 6 months. Some of the lists of disabilities in which veterans can claim is, tinnitus, limitation of flexion of the knee, lumbosacral or cervical strain. PTSD is the highest one. It's really the highest one. Paralysis of the sciatic nerve, limitation of motion of the arm, limitation of motion of the ankle, migraine, scars, burns, sleep disturbances such as insomnia, as well as sleep apnea, chronic fatigue syndrome, as well as Gulf War syndrome, two separate things, allergic rhinitis, maxillary sinusitis, fibromyalgia, and functional gastro issues such as IBS, and as well as abdominal stress. So move on from there. Thus, veterans who were deployed to the Gulf War, they have higher chances or higher likelihood of having PTSD, having migraines, having allergic rhinitis, having these symptoms, having generalized anxiety. Why is this? Mainly due to the type of operations, the type of combat area, combat scene the environment was. It wasn't, like World War II. It wasn't like Vietnam. No, it's completely different. You had door-to-door operations. You had children who could have been on the, enemy side doing crazy things, running around with ordnance, throwing it at service members, whatever the case may be, suicide bombers, all of this. And it takes a toll, especially on the mind, on the physiology, especially when it comes to veterans, because why some veterans go once or twice, many veterans went multiple times, year after year after year after year, for 5-10 plus years, especially in the combat operations field. So it's a higher likelihood of these veterans having these disabilities. However, there's not a lot of veterans claiming these disabilities that served in the Gulf War. Why is this? Because majority of those veterans, or I would say not majority, half of the veterans that came back from the Gulf War, from the war, they didn't have a family to come home to. They didn't have that support system. So majority of these veterans are homeless, or they're not with anybody. They don't have any VA care. They have no medical care. They have no medical benefits. And it's, it's sad. It's sad to see. As well as it's sad to see some Gulf War era veterans who are service connected for some disabilities, but they're not as high in the VA rating as it should be, as well as have symptoms of some of these disabilities that I listed, but they're not seeking any medical treatment. So I've said this a lot of times in all of my videos. In order to, well, not in all of my videos, but in majority of my videos, for presumptive conditions, in order to get service connected for a presumptive condition, you don't have to prove anything besides your deployment history to those identified countries that I listed earlier in this video. Now, that serves as your link to service, your nexus. But to get service connected, you still need a current day diagnosis. How do you get that? You get that from ER, urgent care, minute clinic, if you got VA near you, you can always go to a VA medical facility. Doesn't matter. As long as you're a veteran, you can go to a VA medical facility. It may not be good care, but it is care. If you're working, or if you have the ability to get personal, private medical insurance, go to that private medical provider. Or if you got the money, pay out of pocket. But majority of veterans, you ain't got the money, you ain't got the cash, or we're using our money for something else that we shouldn't be, like alcohol, substance abuse, things of this nature, addictions. We all got one, depending on the medical evidence in which you obtain after your diagnosis, that's going to determine what percentage you get. Like migraines, 0 to 50%, depending on your level of impact to your social and occupational impairment. It could be the difference between 30 or 50%. PTSD, a lot of veterans have PTSD service connected. However, PTSD is one of the hardest mental health VA disability claims to get service connected. Why? Because it's a 3-part thing, but really the third part is, if you've satisfied the first 2, which is have a proper diagnosis, not 10 years of treatment, and if you have an identified stressor having its onset from your active duty time, military service, that's how you get service connected for PTSD. Not a lot of veterans know that, but and then some veterans who do know that, they still submit that paperwork thinking that the VA is going to help them out. Then when they get through the process, if they get called into a C&P exam, they go in, it might be 5 to 10 minutes because they're just happy they got there, instead of holding that examiner accountable. It's supposed to be the VA's duty to assist veterans to obtain a diagnosis. And if a veteran doesn't have it, but they have 10 years worth of well-documented medical evidence, it should be a given. But 9 times out of 10 it's not. So that veteran either needs to, if they're lucky and they get service connected at that compensation and pension exam, by all means, that's Gucci. But if not, that veteran now needs to either submit a supplemental, or B, go into the appeals process, which is long and drawn out. Now, if it's within a year, supplemental will be the right route. But I don't know why a lot of veterans just hit that higher level review. They go to the higher level review, they get denied, and now they're in the legacy appeals, which takes years. It takes years to sit in front of a judge and fight your case. And usually by that time, some veterans are, especially with the older community, older veterans, they're, we know what I'm talking about. We're sensitive. But like always, if you like this type of content, let your boy know. If you got any comments, concerns, let me know in the comment section. Like the video again, share with buddies who will find this information helpful and useful. Until next time, you know what time it is. Motherfucking Debo out.